My name is Lena, and at 38, I've spent years fortifying walls around my heart so thick that neither love nor pain could breach them. I learned early that men were unreliable. My father, Daniel, taught me that lesson when I was 13. I found my mother, Ellen, weeping in our cramped kitchen, clutching proof of his betrayal. He didn't just have an affair, he vanished entirely, leaving us in a run-down apartment while he built a new life with someone younger, someone he thought was better. My mother juggled 3 jobs to keep us afloat. I wore hand-me-downs, and I internalized the first truth: a man's loyalty is fleeting, conditional, and always has an expiration date. When my mother married Thomas 3 years later, I was 16 and full of resentment. Thomas was the opposite of Daniel: steady, compassionate, and immensely successful. He owned a string of businesses across the city, wielding wealth and influence. To me, that made him dangerous, a polished version of the same poison that had shattered my mother. I refused his money, his advice, his attempts to play father. I called him by his name, never Dad. When he offered to cover my college tuition, I rejected it and took out loans instead. At 18, I left home and never looked back. I met Ryan at 23, working grueling shifts at a small diner to chip away at those loans I'd taken out of pride. Ryan, 25, was a photographer with big dreams and an effortless charm that should have warned me. But he saw me. After years of isolation, of convincing myself I didn't need anyone, his attention felt like sunlight after a long winter. He'd wait for me after work, bring me pastries, tell me I was stunning even when I was worn out and smelled of grease. He made me laugh. He made me feel alive. We moved in together after 8 months, a decision that felt bold and right. For the first time since my father's betrayal, I dared to hope that maybe not all men were poison. Maybe I could build something lasting. When I discovered I was pregnant 2 years later, fear mixed with cautious joy. Ryan seemed thrilled at first, talking about cribs, a bigger place, being a family. I let myself believe him, imagining a life where I wouldn't repeat my mother's pain. But pregnancy reveals people's true colors. It strips away the charm and demands sacrifice over sweet words. Ryan started staying out late, coming home reeking of whiskey and weak excuses. He stopped asking about my health, my appointments. He stopped reaching for me. At 7 months pregnant, exhausted and vulnerable, I found the message on his phone. He wasn't sorry. He said I'd become boring, too focused on the baby, no longer the fun girl he'd met. As if carrying his child was a betrayal of his freedom. He said he needed space, wasn't ready for this life. He grabbed a bag and walked out. Just like my father. Just like every man I'd trusted. My daughter, Sophie, was born 6 weeks later. Ryan wasn't there. He never met her, never sent a dime, never called. He erased us from his existence. That's when the second truth solidified: every man will betray you. It's only a matter of time. This belief fueled my rejection of Thomas. I'd been right to push him away at 16, to refuse his help. Men promise, they charm, they seem different, then they leave you broken. For the next 15 years, Thomas tried to stay in my life. He sent checks I ripped up, left voicemails on birthdays I ignored, told my mother he was proud of me. I scoffed, determined to prove I didn't need any man's help. Then came the crisis that broke me open. My gentle, bright 10-year-old daughter, Sophie, came home in tears for the 5th day in a row. The bullying had started subtly, whispers, snickers, being left out at lunch. But it grew vicious. A girl named Chloe, daughter of 2 self-important parents, had made Sophie's life unbearable. Chloe's cruelty was sharp, practiced, as if she'd learned it from the adults around her. Every day, she'd corner Sophie and hiss the same cutting words: "Your mom's a failure. That's why you don't have a dad. No one wants you." Chloe was weaponizing my solitude, turning my deepest wounds into daggers against my daughter. Sophie tried to endure it, to stay strong. But when Chloe tore up Sophie's science project, a model she'd spent weeks building, and sneered, "Kids without fathers don't deserve to shine," Sophie broke. She shoved Chloe, who stumbled and bruised her arm. The next morning, I got the call. Principal Mark Reynolds needed to see me immediately. The air in Principal Reynolds' office was heavy, oppressive. I walked in to find Chloe's parents, Mr. Edward Blake and Mrs. Vanessa Blake, already seated, dressed like they were attending a board meeting. Edward was a financial advisor who loved flaunting his status. Vanessa ran a boutique agency and acted like her wealth made her superior. They looked at me with thinly veiled contempt. Principal Reynolds sat behind his desk, looking uneasy. "Ms. Lena, thank you for coming," he began. "We need to address a serious incident." I tried to explain the months of torment Chloe had inflicted, showing texts from Sophie begging to stay home from school. But Vanessa cut me off. "That's enough," she snapped, her voice icy. "Your daughter attacked mine." She pushed Chloe to the ground. "That's assault, Ms. Lena, and honestly, it's no shock." I froze. "What do you mean?" Vanessa leaned forward, her smile venomous. "Children without stable homes often lash out. Chloe told us about Sophie's circumstances. No father, just you. Clearly, you're struggling. Some women aren't cut out to parent alone." The room tilted. This wasn't about the shove. This was an attack on my existence. Edward, playing the calm professional, slid a document across the desk. "We're willing to avoid legal action or pressing charges, which we could if you sign this." It was a typed letter admitting I was an unfit mother, that my unstable home caused Sophie's behavior, that I was solely to blame. "You want me to admit I'm a failure?" My voice trembled. "We want accountability," Vanessa said, her tone patronizing. "Perhaps a parenting course? A male mentor program for Sophie? Children need fathers, Ms. Lena. It's just nature." Principal Reynolds cleared his throat. "Ms. Lena, until you sign this and show remorse, Sophie will remain suspended. We can't allow aggressive students back without consequences." I sat there, stunned, humiliated. They weren't just punishing Sophie. They were punishing me for being abandoned, for surviving, for choosing to raise my daughter alone. They were saying my pain was my fault, and now Sophie was suffering for it. I left the office without signing, walked to my car, and sat in the parking lot, trembling. At home, Sophie was waiting, her face red from crying. She looked at me with those wide, broken eyes and asked the question that shattered me. "Mom, why doesn't my dad protect me? Am I suspended because Chloe's right? Because you're not good enough." That was the moment my walls collapsed. I wasn't failing Sophie because I was a single mother. I was failing her because I was too stubborn, too wounded to accept help from the one man who'd offered it for 2 decades. Sophie needed someone to shield her, to prove Chloe's words were lies, to show her that loyalty and love could exist. I went to the kitchen, hands shaking, and opened my phone. I scrolled to a contact I hadn't called in 20 years. "Thomas." He answered on the 3rd ring. "Lena." His voice was older but steady, familiar. I couldn't speak at first, my throat tight. Then it all spilled out, the bullying, the suspension, the letter, the way they'd shamed me, called me a failure, a woman who deserved abandonment. There was a pause. Then Thomas spoke, his voice cold with controlled anger. "Lena, listen to me. You are my daughter. Sophie is my granddaughter. These people have made a grave mistake. You haven't failed her. They failed you both. Thomas, I do not sign anything. Do not speak to them. I'll take care of this. I don't want your money." "This isn't about money," he said, his tone softening. "This is about family. You've been mine since I married your mother. I'm sorry I let you keep me at a distance for so long. But you're not facing this alone anymore." He told me to meet him at the school the next morning, 9 a.m. sharp. He'd be there. I hung up, staring at the phone, torn between fear and hope. Would he show up? Or would this be another broken promise, another man letting me down? That night, I couldn't sleep, replaying the Blake smug faces, their cruel words. At 8:55 a.m., outside Principal Reynolds' office, a black SUV pulled up. Thomas stepped out, radiating authority. He was exactly what he was, a man of wealth, influence, and zero patience for unfairness. He walked over, placed a steady hand on my shoulder, and gave me a nod. For the first time in 20 years, I wasn't alone. We entered the office together. The Blakes were there, exuding arrogance. Principal Reynolds sat behind his desk, ready to push the apology letter. But then Thomas spoke. "Good morning, Mr. Reynolds," he said calmly. The principal's face paled. He knew Thomas instantly. Everyone in the city did. Thomas funded school programs, sat on the district's advisory board. He was a force. Mr. Thomas? Reynolds stammered, standing. I'm Lena's stepfather, Thomas said, sitting across from the Blakes. Sophie's grandfather. There seems to be a misunderstanding about responsibility here. Vanessa, still haughty, forced a smile. We're just asking for an apology for Sophie's aggressive behavior, sir. Surely you value discipline. Thomas fixed her with a look that could freeze fire. Mrs. Blake, let me be clear. Your daughter has spent weeks tormenting my granddaughter with cruel, personal attacks about her family. When Chloe destroyed Sophie's project and mocked her for not having a father, Sophie defended herself. That's not aggression. That's survival. Edward leaned forward. With respect, Mr. Thomas, Sophie pushed our daughter, and your daughter. Thomas cut him off, his voice sharp. Your daughter has been bullying mine. Relentlessly. Maliciously. And you've enabled it, spreading lies about Lena's character, calling her unfit. That, Mr. Blake, is slander. And I don't tolerate it. The room fell silent. Thomas turned to Principal Reynolds. Here's what will happen. You will reinstate Sophie immediately, with a formal apology from the school. The Blakes will provide a written apology to Lena and Sophie, and Chloe will enroll in an anti-bullying program. If any of this is refused, I'll take this to the district board, the local press, and my legal team. Your call. Reynolds looked faint. Mr. Thomas, I'm sure we can resolve this. Then do it. Now. The Blakes' confidence crumbled. Edward tried to argue, but Thomas silenced him with a glance. 20 minutes later, I left with a formal apology letter, Sophie's reinstatement, and the Blakes thoroughly humbled. Thomas didn't gloat. He just rested a hand on my shoulder and said, You're an incredible mother, Lena. Don't let anyone tell you differently. Walking into the sunlight that day, I felt something new, protected, valued, loved. Thomas didn't just win a battle, he restored my pride. He showed me family isn't about blood, it's about who stands by you when the world tries to tear you down. Sophie got her life back. And I got my father.